The sound was sickening. It wasn't just the thud of a body hitting the polished airport tile. It was the metallic crash of a dozen service medals, silver stars, purple hearts, the trident, scattering across the floor of Terminal 3. One moment, Commander Harlan Vale stood tall in his dress blues, a hero returning home. The next, he was face down, handcuffed, with Officer Preston Holt screaming stolen valor into his ear. Holt thought he was taking down a fraud. He thought he was the hero. But he didn't know that the phone in Vale's pocket was still connected to a conference call with the Pentagon. And he definitely didn't know that in a matter of minutes, the entire might of the United States Navy was about to descend on this airport and turn his life into a living nightmare. Commander Harlan Vale adjusted the collar of his service dress blues, the stiff fabric digging slightly into a neck scarred from shrapnel taken outside Kandahar years ago. He checked his reflection in the darkened window of the Hudson newsstand. He didn't do this for vanity. He did it because the uniform demanded perfection. Not for him, but for the men he had buried wearing it. Chicago O'Hare. International Airport was a chaotic symphony of rolling suitcases, screaming toddlers, and the droning voice of the PA system announcing delayed flights. A storm front moving through the Midwest had grounded half the fleet, turning the terminal into a holding pen for agitated travellers. Harlan stood near the baggage claim exit, his posture relaxed, but his eyes scanning the crowd with a predator's awareness, a habit drilled into him during many years in the teams. He wasn't on a mission today. He was on the most nerve-wracking assignment of his career, picking up his young daughter Lila, who was flying unaccompanied from her grandmother's house in D.C. It had been some time since his last deployment, months of missed birthdays and pixelated video calls. Today, he wanted to look like the hero she thought he was. He checked his wrist. Her flight was landing at Gate K-12. He was early. He was always early. "Excuse me, sir," a timid voice piped up. Harlan looked down to see an elderly woman struggling with a heavy carry-on bag near the escalator. His face, usually stoic and intimidating to those who didn't know him, softened. "Let me get that for you, ma'am." He lifted the bag with effortless grace, carrying it to the check-in counter for her. She beamed at him, touching the gold stripes on his sleeve. "You look sharp, son." "Navy." "Yes, ma'am." "SEAL teams," Harlan said quietly, almost a whisper. He didn't like advertising it, but the uniform spoke for itself today. "God bless you," she whispered, squeezing his hand. Harlan nodded and returned to his spot near a concrete pillar, a vantage point that offered a clear view of the security exit without obstructing foot traffic. He pulled out his phone. He had a scheduled briefing with Admiral Boone's aide at the Pentagon regarding the logistics of his unit's next training cycle. It was a low-level admin call, mostly listening, so he popped in a single earbud, leaving the other ear open to the room. "Vale here," he said into the mic, his voice a deep baritone. "I'm on the line. Go ahead, Lieutenant." As he listened to the breakdown of budget allocations, his eyes locked onto a figure moving through the crowd. It wasn't a threat, at least not a terrorist threat. It was an airport police officer weaving through the passengers with a swagger that demanded space. Officer Preston Holt was a man who wore his badge like a crown. He was average height, but walked like he was much taller. His thumbs hooked into a tactical vest overloaded with gear he would likely never use inside an airport terminal. Holt had been on the force for many years, stuck in the airport division after a series of excessive enthusiasm complaints in the patrol division. He was bored, he was divorced, and he was looking for a win. To Holt, the airport wasn't a transit hub. It was his kingdom, and in his kingdom, nobody stood out unless he allowed it. His eyes landed on Harlan, a tall, broad-shouldered black man in a navy uniform. Holt paused, squinting. He'd seen plenty of service members come through O'Hare. They usually looked tired, dishevelled, carrying duffel bags. This guy looked too perfect. The crease in the trousers was too sharp. The medals on his chest were stacked too high. And the shoes, they were gleaming. Nobody shines their shoes like that anymore, Holt thought, a cynical sneer forming. Not unless they're trying too hard to sell the con. Holt had read an article online the night before about stolen valor. Civilians dressing up as military personnel to get free upgrades or discounts. It made his blood boil. He fancied himself a guardian of patriotism, despite never having served a day in his life due to flat feet. A lie, he told. He'd actually failed the psychological eval. He watched Harlan speaking into his headset, probably scamming a free meal or trying to pick up women, Holt assumed. He adjusted his belt, feeling the weight of his taser and baton. This was it. This was the bus that would get him back on the streets. He was going to take down a fraud. "Hey!" Holt barked, cutting through the ambient noise of the terminal. Harlan didn't respond. He was listening to the lieutenant in D.C. explain a discrepancy in the ammunition budget. Holt's face flushed. He wasn't used to being ignored. He marched over, his boots heavy on the floor, closing the distance between them aggressively. He stopped 2 feet from Harlan, invading his personal space. "I said, hey, you deaf buddy." Harlan blinked, sliding his gaze from the exit doors to the red-faced officer in front of him. He held up a finger, signalling 1 minute, and tapped his earbud. "Lieutenant, hold one. I have a situation here." "Who are you talking to?" Holt demanded, his hand resting instinctively on his baton. "And take those damn things out of your ears when an officer of the law is speaking to you." Harlan sighed, the air hissing through his nose. He tapped the mute button on his phone, but kept the line open. He removed the earbud. "Can I help you, officer?" "You can help me by explaining what you're doing loitering in a secure transit zone," Holt said, his voice rising in volume. People were starting to look. "I'm waiting for my daughter. Her flight lands soon," Harlan said calmly. His voice was steady, the voice of a man who had negotiated with warlords and diffused IEDs. This angry cop was not a stressor. He was an inconvenience. "Waiting for your daughter," Holt mocked. He looked Harlan up and down, his eyes lingering on the trident, the gold eagle and anchor holding a trident and pistol pinned above Harlan's ribbons. "That's a lot of hardware for a guy just standing around. You a SEAL, huh?" "That's correct. Navy SEAL," Holt repeated loudly, turning his head so the nearby passengers could hear. "We got a hero here, folks. A Navy SEAL." He turned back to Harlan, his smile vanishing. "Let me see your ID." "I don't need to show you my ID unless I'm being detained or suspected of a crime," Harlan said. He knew the law better than Holt did. "I'm standing in a public area." "Refusal to identify," Holt muttered, stepping closer. "You're wearing a federal uniform. That makes it my business. I've seen guys like you buying a costume at the surplus store, coming down here to get free drinks at the Admiral's Club. It's sick." Harlan's eyes hardened. "Officer, I suggest you walk away. I am Commander Harlan Vale, United States Navy. I am currently on a call with the Pentagon. Do not make this a problem." Holt laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "The Pentagon? Oh, that's rich. You're on the phone with the Pentagon. Let me guess. The President is on the other line, too." "Actually," Harlan said, his patience thinning, "I'm speaking with the office of Admiral Boone." "Sure you are," Holt sneered. "And I'm the King of England." The crowd had stopped moving. The rush of travellers had congealed into a ring of spectators, phones raised, recording. In the modern era, nothing happened unless it was streamed. Harlan saw the phones. He knew the drill. De-escalate. Maintain bearing. Do not engage. "Officer," Harlan said, lowering his voice to try and keep this private, "I am asking you respectfully to let me wait for my child. I have identification in my pocket, but I am not going to hand it to you just because you're bored. If you want to verify my status, call the base, but stop making a scene." "I'm the one making a scene," Holt shouted, playing to the crowd. "You're the one disrespecting the uniform. You think you can just put that on and we'll all bow down? I know a fake when I see one. Your hair is too long." Harlan's hair was well within regulations, perhaps a millimetre longer on the top than a fresh buzz, but perfectly groomed. "My grooming standards are in compliance with naval regulations," Harlan said. "Officer, last warning, step back." Holt's ego was fully engaged now. He couldn't back down, not in front of the crowd, not when he was so sure. This guy was too calm. Real people got nervous when cops yelled at them. Real people stuttered. This guy was looking at him like he was a bug on a windshield. It infuriated Holt. "Put your hands behind your back," Holt ordered, unclipping his handcuffs. "For what?" Harlan asked, not moving. "Disorderly conduct, loitering, and suspicion of impersonating a military officer, which is a federal crime." "Buddy, I am not impersonating anyone. I am Commander Vale. Hands. Now." Holt reached out and grabbed Harlan's left wrist. Harlan didn't flinch. His arm was like a steel bar. He didn't pull away, but he didn't yield either. He just stood there, rooted to the ground. "Do not touch me," Holt yanked. Nothing happened. It was like trying to pull a tree out of the ground. Panic flared in Holt's chest. The panic of a bully who realizes he's picked the wrong victim. But instead of retreating, he lashed out. "Resisting arrest!" Holt screamed. He let go of the wrist and, in a move that violated half a dozen departmental policies, swept his leg behind Harlan's knee while simultaneously shoving him in the chest with both hands. Harlan could have countered it. He could have broken Holt's arm in 3 places before the officer hit the ground. But Harlan knew the cameras were rolling. If he struck a police officer, no matter how justified, his career was over. The narrative would be, "Seal beats up cop." He had to take it, so Harlan let himself fall. He went down but controlled it, turning his shoulder to absorb the impact. The floor was hard and the angle was bad. Crash. Harlan hit the tile. The sound of his medals scraping and snapping against the floor echoed through the silent terminal. A collective gasp went up from the crowd. "Oh my God!" a woman screamed. Holt didn't hesitate. He dropped his knee, all 230 pounds of him, directly into the small of Harlan's back, right where the kidneys are. Harlan grunted. The wind was knocked out of him. Pain flared white hot, but he bit his tongue. "Stop fighting! Stop resisting!" Holt yelled for the benefit of the cameras. Even though Harlan was lying perfectly still, face pressed against the cold floor, Holt wrenched Harlan's arms behind his back, forcing them up toward his shoulder blades until the joints popped. He slapped the cuffs on, ratcheting them tight. Too tight. The metal bit into Harlan's wrists. "You're done, pal," Holt hissed, leaning down, his spit landing on Harlan's cheek. "You are so done. I'm going to expose you to the world. You're going to rot in a cell tonight." Harlan took a deep breath, tasting the floor cleaner. His cheek was pressed against the tile. He could see his cell phone lying a few feet away. The screen was still on. The call timer was still counting up. "Officer," Harlan said, his voice strained but audible. "My phone." "Evidence," Holt said, snatching the phone up. He looked at the screen. It said, "Logistics Pentagon." Holt scoffed. "You even renamed your contacts to sell the lie. Pathetic." He went to end the call, but just before his thumb hit the red button, a voice crackled from the speakerphone. Loud, clear, and terrifyingly authoritative. "Commander Vale." "Commander, this is Lieutenant Commander Quinn." "Who is speaking? What is happening?" I heard a struggle. Holt froze. That didn't sound like a buddy in a basement. That sounded like a secure line. "Who is this?" Holt barked into the phone. "This is Lieutenant Commander Quinn, Office of the Chief of Naval Operations." The voice cut back, sharp as a razor. "You are holding the phone of a decorated United States naval commander. Identify yourself immediately." Holt's stomach dropped. A cold sweat prickled his hairline, but he was too deep in. He couldn't be wrong. He couldn't be. "This is Officer Preston Holt, Chicago PD Airport Division. Your commander here is in custody for impersonating an officer and resisting arrest. And you can save the act, buddy. I know he's a fake." There was a silence on the other end of the line, a silence that felt heavy, like the air before a tornado touches down. "Officer Holt," the lieutenant commander said, his voice dropping an octave, deadly calm. "You have made a catastrophic error. Do not hang up this phone. Do not move, Commander Vale. And for your sake, you better pray you haven't injured him. I am patching in Admiral Boone. Stand by." Holt stared at the phone. His hands started to shake. On the floor, Harlan turned his head slightly, ignoring the pain in his back. "A short while," he whispered. "Shut up," Holt yelled. But there was no power in it anymore. Fear had crept in. "A short while," Harlan repeated. "That's how long you have until your world ends." The silence in Terminal 3 was heavy, suffocating. The only sound was the low hum of the conveyor belts and the ragged breathing of Officer Preston Holt. He was still clutching Harlan's phone, his knuckles white. "A short while," Harlan whispered again from the floor. He hadn't moved. He knew that any movement could be interpreted as aggression, giving Holt a legal excuse to use the taser or the baton. Harlan was playing the long game, a game of discipline that Holt didn't have the mental capacity to understand. "Shut up," Holt hissed, looking around. The crowd had grown. Phone cameras were like a forest of unblinking eyes. He felt exposed. He needed backup. He keyed his shoulder radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4 Alpha. I have a suspect in custody at baggage claim 3. Disorderly conduct, resisting. Possible 1031. Impersonating an officer. Need a transport wagon." "Copy, 4 Alpha. Wagon is on the way," the dispatcher crackled back. Holt looked at the phone in his hand. The call was still connected. The speakerphone was silent, but the timer was ticking. "Hello?" Holt mocked into the receiver. "Your buddy Quinn hung up. Guess he realized the jig is up." There was a click on the line, then a voice. It wasn't the lieutenant commander this time. This voice was older, gravelly, and carried the weight of a man who commanded fleets. "This is Admiral Richard Boone, Vice Chief of Naval Operations." The voice boomed. It was so loud that a woman standing 10 feet away heard it and gasped. "To whom am I speaking?" Holt blinked. He felt a flicker of doubt, a tiny crack in his armour of arrogance. But he quickly plastered the smirk back on his face. It had to be a prank, a soundboard. "You're right," Holt laughed nervously. "And I'm Santa Claus. Look, whoever this is, you're aiding and abetting a felon. I'm hanging up." "Officer?" The Admiral's voice didn't rise. It just got colder. "If you terminate this call, I will have federal marshals at your precinct within the hour. You are currently holding Commander Harlan Vale, a recipient of the Navy Cross and the Silver Star. You have assaulted a superior federal officer. I am tracking your location via the commander's GPS. We have contacted the Department of Homeland Security at O'Hare. They are arriving imminently. I suggest you unlock those handcuffs immediately and step away from the commander." Holt's thumb hovered over the end call button. His heart was hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Navy Cross. Homeland Security. "He's lying," Holt muttered to himself. "It's a scam. It's a really good scam." He looked down at Harlan. Harlan looked up, his eyes clear and calm. "You have little time left, officer. My daughter lands soon. If she sees me in cuffs, I will make it my personal mission to ensure you never work in security again, not even as a mole cop." "You threaten me," Holt shouted, playing to the crowd again. "You heard that. He threatened an officer." "Hey!" a voice yelled from the crowd. Holt spun around. A man in his 60s, wearing a faded USMC baseball cap and a denim jacket, pushed his way to the front of the circle. He was leaning on a cane, but his eyes were sharp. "Back off, citizen," Holt warned. The old Marine pointed his cane at Harlan's chest. "I served in Da Nang. I know a ribbon rack when I see one. I know what a trident is. You see that gold badge? You don't buy that at a surplus store. You earn that in hell." The Marine looked Holt dead in the eye. "You just put cuffs on a SEAL. You better have a damn good reason, son, or you're about to be in a world of hurt." Holt felt the room shrinking. The crowd was murmuring now. "Let him up," someone shouted. "He didn't do anything," another voice cried. "Back up, all of you." Holt pulled his baton, brandishing it at the civilians. He was losing control. The narrative was flipping. He was no longer the hero. He was the villain, and he knew it. "Dispatch!" Holt screamed into his radio. "I need backup now. Officer in distress. Hostile crowd. Officer in distress." Darius said from the floor, "The only thing in distress right now is your pension." Suddenly, the automatic doors near the baggage claims slid open. Two men in dark suits wearing earpieces and sunglasses walked in. They didn't run. They moved with a terrifyingly efficient speed. They weren't airport security. They weren't Chicago PD. They scanned the room, saw the circle of people, saw Holt waving a baton, and saw the man in the dress blues face down on the floor. One of the suits tapped his earpiece. "Target acquired." They were FBI. "Over here," Holt yelled, trying to regain authority. "Federal agents. Good. I have a suspect." The lead agent didn't even look at Holt. He looked at Harlan. "Commander Vale?" "That's me," Harlan grunted. The agent looked at Holt. It was a look of pure disgust. "Unlock him. Now." "Excuse me," Holt sputtered. "This man is under arrest for—" "I am Special Agent Marcus Hale, FBI. the man said, flashing his badge. "And you are interfering with a federal operation involving a high-ranking military asset. Admiral Boone just briefed us. Unlock him, or I will arrest you for obstruction of justice and assault on a federal officer." Holt's hands shook so badly he dropped the key. It clattered onto the tile next to Harlan's face. "Pick it up," Agent Hale commanded. Holt bent down, his face burning with humiliation. He picked up the key. He jammed it into the handcuffs. Click. Harlan didn't scramble up. He moved slowly, testing his back. He rolled his shoulders. He stood up to his full height. He towered over Holt. He brushed the dust off his trousers, adjusted his medals, which were thankfully just scratched, not broken, and checked his tie. He held out his hand. "My phone." Holt, pale and sweating, handed the phone over. Harlan put it to his ear. "Admiral, I'm secure." "Commander?" Admiral Boone's voice came through loud enough for Agent Hale to hear. "Are you injured?" "Minor contusions, sir. Nothing that will stop me from the mission." "Good. Stay put. The cavalry is arriving." "Cavalry?" Harlan asked. "Sir, the FBI is already here." "That's not the cavalry, son," the Admiral said with a dark chuckle. "That's just the welcoming committee. I've just gotten off the phone with the mayor of Chicago." At that moment, the airport PA system chimed. But instead of a flight announcement, a breathless voice spoke. "Officer Preston Holt, report to the security desk immediately. Chief of Police Delgado is en route." Holt looked at Harlan. The blood had drained from his face completely. Harlan checked his watch. A short while exactly. He turned to the arrival gate. The lights above gate K12 flashed. Flight arrived. Harlan turned his back on Holt as if the man didn't exist. "Agent Hale, can you ensure this individual stays away from me and my daughter?" "With pleasure, Commander," Hale said, stepping between them. The doors to the jet bridge opened. A stream of passengers poured out, looking tired and dishevelled. Harlan stood at the barrier, ignoring the throbbing pain in his lower back. He forced a smile, the kind that reached his eyes. Then he saw her. Lila, with her pink backpack and messy pigtails, clutching a stuffed bear he had sent her from Germany. She looked small, overwhelmed by the crowd. An airline attendant was guiding her. "Daddy!" she screamed, breaking away from the attendant. She ran. Harlan dropped to one knee, ignoring the sharp stab of pain in his bruised kidney, and opened his arms. She slammed into him, burying her face in his neck. "I missed you. I missed you. I missed you," she squealed. "I missed you too, baby girl," Harlan whispered, closing his eyes. For a moment, the anger, the humiliation, the cop, the FBI, it all vanished. There was only the smell of her strawberry shampoo and the weight of her in his arms. "Did you catch the bad guys?" she asked, pulling back to look at his uniform. She touched the medals. "You look like a prince." Harlan laughed, a genuine sound. "Something like that. Come on, let's get your bag." He stood up, lifting her effortlessly onto his hip. As he turned, the reality of the situation crashed back in. The horse area around the baggage claim had been cordoned off. Yellow tape was being strung up, but it wasn't a crime scene for Harlan anymore. Standing outside the tape was a phalanx of uniformed officers. But these weren't airport beat cops. These were the white-shirted brass. In the center stood a man with stars on his collar, Chief Delgado, the head of the Chicago Police Department. Beside him was a severe-looking woman in a pantsuit, the airport's legal director. And between them, stripped of his tactical vest and baton, stood Preston Holt. He wasn't swaggering anymore. He was slumped, his face grey. Chief Delgado spotted Harlan and walked over, ducking under the tape. He approached Harlan with a hand extended, but stopped when he saw Harlan's cold stare. "Commander Vale," the chief said, his voice tight. "I am Chief Delgado. On behalf of the Chicago Police Department, I want to offer my profound apologies." Harlan looked at the chief, then at Lila, then back at the chief. "Chief, my daughter is a young girl. She doesn't need to know that her father was assaulted by a public servant minutes ago. So we're going to keep this voice down." "Understood," Delgado said, lowering his voice. "I have just spoken with the mayor and Admiral Boone. This is a disaster, an absolute disaster." "It's a misunderstanding," Holt blurted out from behind the tape. He couldn't help himself. He wouldn't show ID. He resisted. "Silence!" The chief spun around, his face turning purple. "One more word, Holt, and I will have you gagged. You attacked a decorated senior officer of the United States Navy based on a hunch. You violated 4 distinct protocols regarding use of force. You are a disgrace to the badge." Holt shrank back, stunned. He had never seen the chief in person, let alone been dressed down by him. Harlan shifted Lila to his other hip. "Chief, I appreciate the apology, but apologies don't fix my uniform, and they don't fix the fact that I was treated like a criminal in front of 100 civilians. We are prepared to do whatever is necessary." The legal director stepped in. "We can arrange a settlement." "I don't want your money," Harlan cut her off. "I want his badge." He pointed at Holt. "I want him processed. I want him charged with assault and battery. I want him charged with false imprisonment. And I want it done by the book. No blue wall of silence. No paid administrative leave." "Commander," the chief sighed, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We will conduct a full internal affairs investigation. I promise you." "Not good enough," Harlan said. He pulled his phone out. "Admiral, you still there?" "I'm here, Harlan." Boone's voice came from the speaker. "The chief says they will do an internal investigation." "That's cute." "Chief Delgado, this is Admiral Boone. If that officer isn't booked into county lockup by sundown, I am contacting the Judge Advocate General. We will classify this as an assault on federal personnel, impeding a military operation. We will take jurisdiction. Do you want the Navy prosecuting your officer, Chief, or do you want to handle your own trash?" Chief Delgado looked like he was about to be sick. The threat was clear. If the military stepped in, it became a federal case. The press would eat the department alive. "That won't be necessary, Admiral," Delgado said quickly. He turned to 2 burly sergeants standing nearby. "Take Officer Holt into custody. Suspend him without pay, effective immediately. Charge him with aggravated battery and misconduct." "Chief, you can't," Holt screamed as the sergeants grabbed his arms. "I was doing my job. He's a suspect. Get him out of here," Delgado barked. The crowd, which had stuck around to watch the second act, erupted into applause as Holt was frog-marched away, handcuffed with his own cuffs. The irony was poetic. Harlan watched him go, his expression unreadable. He felt no joy, only a grim satisfaction. It was a mission accomplished, threat neutralized. "Daddy, why is that policeman in trouble?" Lila asked, wide-eyed. Harlan smoothed her hair. "He made a mistake, baby. A big mistake. He forgot the most important rule." "What rule?" "Respect," Harlan said. "He forgot to treat people with respect." He looked at Chief Delgado. "Am I free to go, Chief? Or do you need me to identify myself further?" Please, the chief gestured to the exit. We will have a car take you to your destination. It's the least we can do. No thanks, Harlan said, hoisting his duffel bag. I've had enough of police cars for one day. I'll take a cab. He walked away, the sea of people parting for him. He walked tall, despite the pain in his back, holding his daughter's hand. He was the picture of dignity. But the story wasn't over. Harlan knew that men like Holt didn't go quietly. And the video, the one the teenager in the hoodie had recorded, was already uploading. By the time Harlan and his daughter Lila were safely inside their hotel room, eating room service pizza and watching cartoons, the world outside was burning. The video uploaded by the teenager at the airport had gone live on social media shortly after. By evening, it had migrated across platforms and become the lead story on major news networks. The title of the thread was simple but devastating. Power-tripping cop assaults Navy SEAL commander in front of his kid, claims stolen valor. It spread like wildfire. Inside his modest, dimly lit apartment on the outskirts of Chicago, suspended officer Preston Holt sat in his recliner, a lukewarm beer in his hand, staring at his phone. His hands were shaking so hard he could barely hold the device. He watched the video for the 100th time. On screen, Harlan stands calmly. Holt screams. Holt kicks the leg, the sickening crunch of medals hitting the floor, the knee in the back. But it was the audio that was killing him. The internet sleuths had enhanced the sound. You could hear Harlan's calm warnings. I am Commander Vale. A short while. The comment section was a scrolling waterfall of hate. Holt threw his phone across the room. It bounced off the drywall and cracked. They don't know, he screamed at the empty room. They don't know the pressure. His landline rang. It had been ringing for hours. Death threats, prank calls, reporters. He let it go to voicemail. Then his cell phone buzzed. It was a number he didn't recognize, but the area code was 202 DC. He answered, hoping it was a lawyer offering help. Hello, is this Mr. Preston Holt? A slick, fast-talking voice answered. Yeah. Who's this? This is an unnamed producer for a prominent conservative talk show network. We saw the video. We think you're being railroaded, Preston. We think this is a setup by the woke military agenda. We want to hear your side tonight. Prime time. Holt's eyes lit up. This was it. The lifeline. He wasn't the villain. He was the victim of a misunderstood encounter. He could spin this. I'll do it, Holt said, sitting up straighter. But I want to get paid. We can discuss an honorarium, the producer said. Just get to the studio in downtown Chicago by early evening. Meanwhile, at the Pentagon, Admiral Boone sat in his office watching the same video on a large monitor. Standing before him were the Navy's top JAG lawyers and the Chief of Naval Information. The narrative is spiraling, sir, the public affairs officer said. People are furious. They want blood. But now we're hearing rumors that Holt is going on a talk show tonight to claim Vale provoked him. Boone's eyes narrowed. He took a sip of his coffee. He wants to fight this in the media. It appears so, sir. He's going to claim Vale was aggressive and that the camera angle is misleading. Boone stood up and walked to the window overlooking the Potomac. Commander Vale is a quiet professional. He won't go on TV. He won't lower himself to a shouting match. That means we have to speak for him. The Admiral turned back to the room. Release the audio. The JAG lawyer frowned. Sir, the audio from the phone call. Yes? Boone commanded. The call was recorded on our secure servers for logistical archiving. It captures the entire interaction from Vale's pocket. It captures the assault. It captures Holt admitting he didn't care who Vale was. Sir, that's highly unusual, the lawyer warned. This man assaulted a SEAL who was on an active duty call, Boone said, his voice leaving no room for argument. He disgraced the uniform. If he wants to go on TV and lie, I will make sure the truth is waiting for him. Release the tape to the Associated Press. Embargo it for shortly after his interview starts. Boone smiled grimly. Let's see how he handles a live fact check. The makeup artist was dabbing powder on Holt's sweating forehead. He was sitting in a leather chair in the studio, the lights blindingly bright. He felt important again. And we're live in 3, 2, 1. The host, a man known for his aggressive anti-establishment rhetoric, leaned in. Tonight, we have the man the media loves to hate, Officer Preston Holt. Preston, you're being called a monster, but you say there's more to the story. Holt cleared his throat. He had rehearsed this in the car. That's right. Look, the video starts late. What you don't see is this guy. He was aggressive. He was shouting profanities. He refused to show ID. In this climate with terrorism, I can't take chances. I thought he was a threat. So you felt he was posing a danger to the airport? Absolutely, Holt lied, gaining confidence. He made a move toward his waistband. I used necessary force to neutralize a potential shooter. I'm the victim here. The Navy is just trying to save face because one of their guys was acting like a thug. Holt felt a rush of adrenaline. He was doing it. He was turning the tide. Then the host paused. He touched his earpiece. His expression changed from sympathetic to confused, then to shark-like. Preston, the host said, looking down at a tablet on his desk. We're getting some breaking news. The Pentagon has just declassified the audio recording of the phone call Commander Vale was on during the arrest. Holt's stomach turned to ice water. Audio? Yes. Let's play a clip. The studio speakers blasted the clear, high-definition audio recorded by the Pentagon secure line. Harlan, calmly. Officer, I suggest you walk away. I am Commander Harlan Vale. Holt, screaming, I'm the King of England. Harlan, do not touch me. Holt, resisting arrest. Sounds of a struggle. Harlan grunting in pain. Holt, I'm going to expose you. You're going to rot. The silence in the studio after the clip ended was deafening. The host looked at Holt. The sympathy was gone. The host knew he had been played, and he didn't like looking stupid. Preston, the host said, his voice dripping with venom. You just told me he was shouting profanities on that tape. He sounds perfectly calm. You sound unhinged. It's doctored, Holt shouted, standing up. That's AI. It's a fake. It was released by the Department of Defense with a digital chain of custody, the host snapped. Sit down. No. Holt panicked. He looked at the camera. They're framing me. I'm a good cop. Cut his mic, the host said to the producer. Holt's mouth kept moving, but no sound came out. The camera panned away from him as security guards moved in to escort him off the set. He was walked out the back door of the studio into a rainy Chicago alley. He checked his phone. The hashtag Holt lied was trending #1. But the night wasn't over. As he walked toward his car, he saw a figure leaning against the brick wall. A man in a tailored suit holding a briefcase. Mr. Holt, the man asked. Who are you? Another reporter, Holt spat. No. The man smiled, handing him a thick envelope. My name is Arthur P. Jenkins. I represent the law firm of Goldman Sachs and Associates. I've been retained by the Fraternal Order of Police Legal Defense Fund." "Oh, thank God," Holt exhaled. "You're here to defend me," Jenkins laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. "No, Mr. Holt, you misunderstood. I'm here to inform you that the union has voted to revoke your membership and legal protection effective immediately. You violated the morals clause of your contract." Holt froze. Without the union, he had no lawyer. He had no protection against the city. "And," Jenkins added, "I am also here to serve you with this." He tapped the envelope. "This is a civil suit filed on behalf of Commander Vale. He is suing you personally for defamation, assault, battery, and emotional distress caused to a minor. He is seeking damages in the amount of $5 million. "I don't have $5 million, Holt shrieked. "I have a 2015 Ford Taurus and a condo underwater." "Then we will take the Taurus," Jenkins said calmly, "and the condo, and your future wages. Have a good night, Mr. Holt." The lawyer walked away, leaving Holt standing in the rain, holding the envelope that marked the end of his life as he knew it. Holt didn't go home. He slept in his car. In the morning, he reported to the Internal Affairs Division at CPD headquarters. The room was grey, windowless, and smelled of stale coffee. Across the metal table sat Captain Ruiz from IA, and to Holt's horror, a tall man in a Navy service khaki uniform, a JAG officer. "Officer Holt," Captain Ruiz started, "you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney." "Can't afford an attorney," Holt mumbled. "The union dropped me." "Then a public defender will be appointed," Ruiz said, not bothering to hide his disdain. "However, before we proceed with the criminal charges, we are here to handle your employment status." Ruiz slid a folder across the table. "We pulled your jacket, Preston. We found 6 previous complaints of excessive force that were swept under the rug by your previous supervisor. That supervisor has been fired as of this morning." Holt put his head in his hands. "But here is the kicker," the JAG officer spoke up. "We ran a background check on your initial application to the police academy from many years ago. You claimed you were honorably discharged from the Army Reserve." Holt looked up, pale as a sheet. "We checked the records," the JAG officer continued. "You never served. You failed basic training in week 2 and were separated for failure to adapt. You lied on your police application. That is perjury. That is fraud." Captain Ruiz leaned in. "Do you know what that means, Preston? It means you were never legally a police officer. It means every arrest you ever made is now subject to appeal. It means your pension is gone. Your benefits are gone. And you are looking at years in state prison for fraud on top of the assault charges." Holt began to weep, ugly, heaving sobs. "I just wanted to be a hero," he blubbered. "I just wanted people to respect me." "Respect is earned," the JAG officer said, standing up and gathering his files. "Commander Vale earned it in Kandahar and Helmand. You tried to steal it by bullying a man in front of his child. That is the definition of stolen valor." Captain Ruiz stood up as well. "Stand up, Mr. Holt. You are under arrest." The Cook County Courthouse was besieged. It had been some time since the incident at O'Hare International Airport, but the public's memory had not faded. If anything, the trial of the People versus Preston Holt had become a national spectacle, a symbol of the reckoning between accountability and abuse of power. Inside courtroom 402, The air was stale and thick with tension. Harlan Vale sat in the front row, dressed not in his uniform, but in a charcoal grey suit. He looked like a civilian, a father, just a man. Beside him sat Admiral Boone, who had flown in from DC just for this moment. His presence sent a clear message to the judge. The United States Navy is watching. Preston Holt sat at the defense table. He looked deflated. Gone was the swagger, the tactical vest, the sneer. He had lost significant weight. His cheap suit hung loosely on his frame. He looked small. The trial had been a disaster for the defense. The prosecution had played the airport security footage, the cell phone video, and the damning audio from the Pentagon call. They had brought in the human resources director from the Chicago Police Department to testify about Holt's fraudulent application. They had brought in a spinal specialist to testify about the long-term damage to Harlan's lower back. But the final nail in the coffin was Holt's own testimony. Under cross-examination, he had crumbled, admitting that he targeted Harlan simply because he looked too clean to be real. It was an admission of bias that gasped through the courtroom. Judge Sophia Lang, a woman known for her zero-tolerance policy on public corruption, shuffled her papers. She adjusted her glasses and looked down at Holt. "Mr. Holt, please stand." Holt stood up, his legs shaking. "In my years on the bench," Judge Lang began, her voice echoing in the silent room, "I have seen many officers make mistakes in the heat of the moment. Danger is real, and split-second decisions are difficult. But this," she held up the case file, "this was not a split-second decision. This was a sustained act of ego, malice, and bullying." She leaned forward. "You targeted a man who has given more to this country in a single deployment than you have in your entire life. You mocked his service. You assaulted him while he was compliant. And then when caught, you lied to the world on national television." Holt looked down at his shoes. "But the most egregious offence," the judge continued, "is the betrayal of the public trust. You wore a badge you didn't earn. You held power you didn't deserve. You are the very definition of a wolf in sheep's clothing." "Your Honour, please," Holt whispered. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix a fractured vertebra, Mr. Holt, and it doesn't restore the faith of the community." The judge picked up her gavel. "On the charge of aggravated battery, I sentence you to a lengthy term in the Illinois Department of Corrections. On the charge of impersonating a peace officer and fraud, I sentence you to an additional lengthy term. These sentences are to run consecutively." Holt's knees buckled. "Furthermore," the judge added, "you are ordered to pay restitution to Commander Vale in a substantial amount. Since you have no assets, your future wages will be garnished by a significant portion until the debt is paid. You will never work in security or law enforcement again. Bailiff, take him away." As the gavel banged, the courtroom erupted. Two bailiffs moved in, pulling Holt's hands behind his back. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was the same sound Holt had used on Harlan months ago. The karma was precise. Holt looked back at the gallery as he was led out. He locked eyes with Harlan. He expected to see a smirk, a look of triumph. But Harlan just looked tired. There was no joy in sending a man to prison. There was only the necessary duty of removing a threat. Harlan gave him a single, slow nod. A nod that said, "It's over." Then the door slammed shut, and Preston Holt was gone. Some time later, The sun was setting over the Anacostia River in Washington, D.C. The air was crisp, smelling of autumn leaves. Captain Harlan Vale stood on the meticulously manicured lawn of the Washington Navy Yard. The promotion ceremony had been small, just as he requested. No cameras, no fanfare. Admiral Boone pinned the new insignia on Harlan's collar, the silver eagle of a Navy captain. "You earned this a long time ago, Harlan," Boone said, shaking his hand. "And you earned it again in Chicago. Most men would have fought back. You had the discipline to let the system work, even when the system was trying to break you." "Thank you, Admiral. I just wanted to get home to Lila. Speaking of which," Boone smiled, pointing toward the buffet table. Lila, now missing a front tooth, was running in circles with the Admiral's golden retriever. She was laughing, a sound pure and unburdened by the darkness her father had shielded her from. Harlan walked over to her. She stopped running and looked up at him, squinting in the sunlight. "Daddy, are you a pirate now?" she asked, pointing to the eagle. Harlan laughed, picking her up. "No, sweetie, still just a sailor." "Are you going away again?" she asked, her voice turning serious. "Not for a long time," Harlan promised. He had taken a shore duty assignment at the Pentagon to oversee training protocols. He was done with the sandbox for a while. He had a different mission now, raising her. He sat on a bench, holding Lila on his lap, looking out at the river. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. He didn't care about the news anymore. But if he had looked, he would have seen a small article on page 14 of the Chicago Tribune. Former officer Preston Holt denied protective custody. The article detailed how Holt, now inmate number whatever, was having a difficult adjustment period at Stateville Correctional Center. The general population didn't take kindly to dirty cops. He was working in the laundry room for pennies an hour, scrubbing stains out of uniforms he would never wear again. He had lost his condo. His wife had left him. He was alone in a concrete box, with nothing but time to think about those critical moments at the airport. Harlan didn't need to know that. He didn't need to gloat. The universe had balanced the scales. He looked down at Lila. "You know, baby, there's one thing I learned this year." "What's that, Daddy?" "That being strong doesn't mean you have to fight everyone," Harlan said softly. "Sometimes being strong just means standing your ground and telling the truth. The truth always wins eventually." Lila rested her head on his shoulder, tracing the silver eagle on his collar. "I know you're my hero." Harlan closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun and the weight of his daughter. He wasn't a hero because of the medals or the rank or the wars. He was a hero because he had kept his promise to return to her. And for Captain Harlan Vale, that was the only victory that mattered. And that is the story of how a short while of arrogance cost a man his entire life. Preston Holt thought the uniform made the man, but he learned the hard way that it's the character underneath that counts. He mistook Commander Vale's silence for weakness, not realizing it was the terrifying discipline of a warrior who knew exactly how dangerous he really was. It's a powerful reminder to all of us. Treat everyone with respect, whether they're a CEO, a janitor, or a quiet man standing at the airport. You never know who you're talking to, and you never know when the karma you dish out is going to come back and knock you down. What would you have done if you were in Commander Vale's shoes? Could you have kept your cool while being humiliated in front of your child? Or would you have fought back? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story about karma hitting back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.